Good. Thank you, Dov. And page 416. Boker Tov Yafi, ma shlomech? Good.
Good morning. The class is on,
Okay, Parshat Mishpatim, page 416. Good morning, Brana. Parshat Mishpatim 416 seems to come just out of the blue. I mean, we just had all the story of Egypt and Yetziat Mitzrayim, the Exodus, and Har Sinai, Mount Sinai, and the Ten Commandments. And we're going to pick up with that again at the end of Mishpatim. And then the next parsha is continuing with the story with at least the collection of all the necessary components of the Mishkan of the tabernacle. And then bang, we have over here, I forget the exact number of mitzvot here. I believe it's in the hundreds. It's just the Eila HaMishpatim Asher Tasim Lifnehem. And these are the Mishpatim, the laws, the ordinances. Right? We have different names for laws. One of them is Mishpat, and the root of the word Mishpat is Shin Pei Tet, which is Shafat or Shofet, which is a judge or a judgment. Right? And the Mishpatim are basically those laws that our judgment would have dictated that it happen. Right? They are the chukim, the laws that we on our own never would have thought would be an issue. Right? Wearing shatnez, wearing garments that mix wool and linen. Right?
Who would have thought?
Who would have thought? Right? Even basar v'chalav, even milk and meat. Right? You know, we find explanations and understandings, but certainly it's not something that we would have come up with on our own. Whereas the Mishpatim are the laws that come up that are logical.
Is this the part that we read fast?
No, that's something else.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the tochacha is something where there is where it's the curses that will befall us,
yes.
Right? And therefore that we say it at slightly lower tone and a slightly faster pace.
Did you want to skip this?
Huh?
This is the core. This is the core.
This is the core.
Okay, so what is this doing here? And to compound the problem, how does it start? Ve'ele hamishpatim. Vav means and. Right? Vav achibur. Vav comes to connect it to that which preceded it. And these are the mishpatim that should be placed before them. So let's get started a little bit, and then let us try to dissect this a little bit. Who wants to start for us in Hebrew? The Yafi default. Yafi's been practicing. I think she's going to do a really good job. Let's hear her.
ואלה המשפטים אשר תשים לפניהם. כי תקנה עבד עברי 6 שנים יעבוד, ובשביעית יצא לחופשי חינם. אם בגפו יבוא, בגפו יצא. אם בא אישה הוא ויצאה אשתו עמו. Okay, let's stop there. And the Hebrew accent is really coming along beautifully. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Almost like an Israeli. Yeah. Wow. Okay. We welcome Hugo. Hugo is somewhat new to the community. And
Did he kick you out of this chair?
Huh?
He was sitting here and I'm looking at it.
That's your place. Okay, Hugo, take us 1, 2, and 3 in English, please.
1, 2, and 3?
Mm-hmm.
On 417, right?
417, yeah.
And these are the ordinances that you shall place before them. If you buy a Jewish bondsman, he shall work for 6 years, and in the 7th he shall go free for no charge. If he shall arrive by himself, he shall leave by himself. If he is the husband of a woman, his wife shall leave with him.
Okay, so let's just deal with this for a moment. Okay? A Jewish slave. how does a Jew become a slave?
Sold himself into slavery.
One of two ways. One is that he sells himself into slavery, right? And to a certain degree, I compare it to communism.
Exactly. It's like a live-in maid, you know. She
Yeah.
gets paid.
Yeah, I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to worry about anything. My needs are taken care of. I'm told what to do. I do it. There's no need for any initiative. There's no concern about paying my bills. I work and I get paid. Now, that's one possibility. The other possibility is that if a person stole and is unable to pay back that which he stole, he is sold into slavery, but this slavery is not the type of slavery that we read about that took place in most of the world. This is a slavery where the Gemara actually says when you acquire a slave, it's like acquiring a master. Because the pasuk elsewhere says, "Kitov lo." We'll have it, and we'll get to it inside. Right? A person might, at the end of after 6 years, he goes out free. After 6 years, when he starts working, he goes out free. You don't own this person for anything longer than that. If he came in alone, he goes out alone. If he had a wife, his wife goes out with him. What does that mean? His wife wasn't sold into slavery. She hasn't been working. But the person who acquires this slave has to support this person and this person's wife and this person's children also. Now, the Gemara says, well, he says, Kitov lo imach. He might want to stay, and there's a provision for him to stay on if he chooses to, because it's good for him with you. The Gemara learns out, with you, you can't treat him any worse than you treat yourself. Meaning you're eating white bread, which used to be considered a good thing, right? You can't give him the whole wheat, which used to be considered a bad thing. Now we'd say if you're eating the whole wheat, you can't give him the white bread, right? If you've got a comfortable bed, he has to have the same comfortable bed. If there's only one that's at a higher level, so then the Gemara says an amazing situation results. You can't take the better quality and give him the inferior quality because the pasuk says, Tov lo imach. He has to have it as good as you. For neither of us to have it, for me to say, well, if I can't have it, you can't have it, that's what we call the midah, the attribute of Sodom. That is, if I can't have it, no one's going to have it. That we can't have either. So therefore it ends up that he'll have the plush, what do they call that? The plush top mattress? Huh? Yeah. He'll have the fancy mattress, right? And you're on the foam. Right?
He gets the serta.
Right. He gets the serta, and you get the foam mattress. Right? You're on the couch. Right? Well, he's on the bed, and you're on the couch. But even more importantly, this idea of an eved is that he gets put into an environment where he learns responsibility, he learns honesty, he gets put into an environment where it is a positive environment for him, that once he goes out free, he then has that modeling that he experienced to know how to live properly. But let's come back over here. What is it? And these are the Mishpatim. Why are we going from Matan Torah, from the height of spirituality, from standing on at Mount Sinai, hearing God speak, a revelation to the entire people, and now we're getting stuck over here? You buy a slave, this is what you do, and the maidservant, if you hit someone, this is what you do. If people are fighting and they get hurt, this is what you need to pay. I mean, and then we go into your property damaged others. How do you deal with the animal that did the goring? How do you deal with the property damage? You dug a hole, you stole, you lit a fire and it spread to someone else's field. You gave someone items to watch. It got stolen. He was getting paid. He wasn't getting paid. He borrowed. He rented. Whoa! Like what just happened? We just went from the heights of the heights, and here we are in the nitty gritty, in these laws of damages, of torts, of loans, of this and that. Like what happened? Ve'ela. And these are the Mishpatim connecting. What's the connection between Har Sinai and all of this mundane, just ordinary damage? He pays this. If you beat someone up, there are 5 payments you need to make. There's how much damage, how much pain. There's, I'm sorry?
The lawyers showed up.
Yeah, there's the degradation, the humiliation. There's workman's compensation. There's medical bills. It's like we're going from Yom Kippur, and you walk out of Shul on Yom Kippur, and you say, all right, let me check the stock price, and let me see, what's going on over here?
Because you can't be on high for a prolonged period of time. It's
okay.
exhausting, and you have to have law and order in life.
Okay, so Rachel wants to say that you can't be up there all the time. You've got to come down at a certain point. Okay?
And your life has to be
these people were slaves in Mitzrayim, and they're going free. So there's going from a whole picture of people, it's not even a nation yet, people that were slaves, and that's what they know. That's what they have in their narrow mind.
Okay. So
this is one thing, and the other thing is that.
So just one second. So I think Yafi's actually addressing like why are we starting with slavery?
Right.
Right? And that's because hey, we were just slaves, and therefore we demand more from you to understand the plight and to have a structure that is supportive for those who are in the predicament that you yourself were recently in.
And the whole thing with the rechush and stealing and this whole detailing, it's they are people. They are, suddenly they have possessions and there's, this, how do you say?
Well, they need to find a new way to live,
right?
All those,
the jealousy, the rivalry.
And all those bad you have, I want to have it too. It's
okay.
people. There's no frame.
So now we've got to get back down to reality.
Right.
Going down to these details, this will put them on a path to become a nation and to become to be in the frame of a nation.
Okay.
To start living
the
small details of life.
Okay, so you need rules to live by. You've got to come down from the clouds. You've got to deal with reality. This is a brave new world for them. Now there's possessions. They need to know how to navigate their way through all of that. Leah.
I'm just curious, what is the chronological order? So we just were at Mount Sinai, and we just got the Torah, and then we say you can't hear the rest, so Moshe goes back up to hear the rest, and then the parsha ended, last parsha.
Yeah, so there are different opinions of how the exact order is, but this is what Moshe taught them after the 10 Commandments, and then at the end of the parsha we have Moshe ascending. Okay? Now,
so they got the 10 Commandments plus this, and then he goes back.
According to Ramban, that was the order. Yes, he went back up afterwards. Yes.
But isn't this the oral Torah?
No.
No.
This is the right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that like high up there? That's how you to get the connection is to do this in order to have that connection.
Okay, I'm gonna come back to that in a moment. Thank you, Dove.
Previously here, they're talking about the service you're going to do with the altar and on and on and on. And you think the service is finished there? No, it's going to be, when you leave from there, the service is still continuing in what you're going to do.
Okay. So what both Sonny and Dove are pointing out is a slightly different flavor than what Rachel and Yafi were saying. Right? On one hand, yeah, it's great to be up in the clouds, but you've got to now, deal with the reality. Let's get real. Now we're no longer slaves. Now we have possessions. These things are going to come up. We need to sort it out. But there's another way of looking at it. Just like we had Aseret HaDibrot, we had the 10 Commandments, and we had 2 luchot, we had 2 tablets, 5 and 5. 5 of them were between man and man, and the other 5 were between man and creators, we'll call it, right? Because man and God is a bit problem because of honoring parents, but parents are also creators. We've got to realize that the way, ve'ele hamishpatim asher tasim lefneihem, the way that we stay in the clouds, the way that we are a holy nation, it's not by being up in the clouds, but it's by being brutally honest, careful in our dealings with one another. It can't be this up in the clouds religion. It's a religion of doing, of action, of integrity. There will be disputes, and there is the rule of law, and that is what elevates us. It is a complete system. It's not turn the other cheek. You don't always turn the other cheek. You turn the other cheek, you make it smacked in the other cheek also. It's reality. It's life. Torah means teachings. It means instructions. Torat Chaim means instructions for life. And these are 2 integral sides of the coin. Ve'ela mishpatim, and these are the judgments that should be placed before them. This is how we need to live. This is what Judaism is. Judaism is not just what we do in the synagogue. Judaism is what we do in our workplace. Judaism is what we do if we bump into someone else's car in the parking lot and no one saw.
I just did it yesterday.
And I'm sure you left a note.
Oh my
Prophecy. And I'm sure you left a note, Yafi. I have no doubt.
I started walking because I wasn't sure. I just tried to park and I was very close to the next car.
Right.
So I left this parking and I parked somewhere else, and I left my car and I started walking, and then I said, I'm gonna go and see what happened. And I went back and I see that I don't think it.
And you saw the bumper was off and one of the doors was hanging.
I don't think I did it because it was too brutal, but I left it.
Okay. Wow. That's what Judaism is. That's what Torah is. Ve'ela mishpatim asher tasim lefneihem. And these are the judgments. So it's what we do in shul. It's what we do when we're davening. It's what we do when we're at the kotel. And it's what we do when we're in the parking lot. It's what we do when we're in the store and there's someone else carrying packages. And we'll see there's a mitzvah of hakem takem imo, which is talking specifically about helping someone else. Load up a donkey or unload the donkey. So now, right, well, in Irvine we might see some donkeys around, but that's besides the point, right? But usually in America we don't see all that many donkeys around, right? But you're walking out of the store and you have people there who are loading up. You walk out of the store and there's a woman with a baby, right? And she's putting stuff into her car. So you say, can I help you bring the cart back? Or help unload. Helping unload, people get a little nervous. You might want to run off with it, right? But can I take your cart back? That the Eila Mishpatim. This is what it is. It's not that we can't always be up there. It's that this is what keeps us up there. It is integrated. It is full service. It's all about who we are every moment of the day, in every encounter that we have.
It keeps us up there, but it also brings God down here.
Yeah.
And,
Nice.
and one
Nice. Because we bring God and honesty and integrity and Judaism into every dealing that we have. One of my sons is involved in real estate deals, and he called me, and he said, you know, he and I both like numbers, right? So he's you know, he goes into every deal. He's got all the numbers completely worked out. He's got no question marks on that. And he's had a deal on a fairly large property, and the sellers, and he's sitting there with his yarmulke on, and the sellers made a mistake in their computation to the tune of about $40,000.
in favor of the buyer.
In favor of my son, yeah, and the people that he was representing, right? And without batting an eyelid, my son said, "Your numbers are wrong. There was supposed to be a credit over here for this amount, and it should be, 40,000, whatever. Whatever. You're off by 40,000 in my favor. Please correct that." Right? And the lawyers said to me afterwards, "We've never seen that before. We've never seen that before." And he had his kippah on. And that's what it's meant to be. Well, actually, the Mefarshim say we're called Yehudim. We're all called, right, Jews, Judaism, from Judah, right, Yehudim, Yehudi, right? Now, Judah was one of the tribes. Now, granted, 10 of the other tribes were sent out into exile, and there are different opinions if they ever came back or not. And it was the kingdom of Judah that remained, and therefore it could be explained that that's why, historically speaking, we're called Jews, Judaism, because we're from that tribe or that kingdom of Judah that was exiled at a later point and did not become lost amongst the different nations. But I believe the Kli Yakar says that we are called Yehudim because of Yehuda, because of Judah, because Judah, when he was faced with a very, very humiliating situation, when Tamar, his daughter-in-law, was pregnant, and she was being brought before the court, and that court involved him and his father and probably his grandfather, all part of that beit and part of that court. And she was supposed to be waiting to marry his youngest son, and now she's pregnant. And Yehuda says, Tzadka, mimeni, right? She is righteous. She's more righteous than I am, or mimeni, right? She's pregnant from me. That took a brutal honesty that was very, very, very humiliating. Now, and you might say, well, he had no choice. He couldn't allow her to be put to death if he was at fault. But there was a way that he could have done it. Right? When she said, whoever this ring and staff and cloak belongs to, it is from him that I am pregnant. He didn't have to say, and he recognized it was his, he didn't have to say, that's mine. He could have said, well, in light of this, we need to have some further investigation. And then it could have just been dragged on. Her life could have been saved, and he would not have been so humiliated. But Yehuda stepped forward and said, mimeni. And I believe the Kli Yakar, I think the Kli Yakar says, that's why we're called Yehudim, because we are meant to be brutally honest people like Judah. So that is what keeps us in the clouds, and as Leah said very beautifully, that is what brings Hashem down into our dealings, down into the nitty-gritty. Really, our understanding of why God created a world, which we can't fully understand. But clearly, there must be a certain degree of God wanting to be down here in the nitty-gritty, not just in the heavenly, in the angelic realm, but to be involved down here in our nitty-gritty, and for us to uplift our dealings, our nitty-gritty dealings, by following these Eila HaMishpatim.
And this is also, how can I say that? The advantage of Judaism, it's not just it's a faith-based religion, but it's a law-based religion. Because faith, you go through periods, you don't have faith, you have faith, but this is a law-based religion, which whether you have that deep feeling or not, if you live by it, you're still kind of...
Yeah, that is a good point. The laws is what, we're physical beings. I was having a conversation with a girl I was studying with for her bat mitzvah, right? So, believe in God? Yeah, I believe in God, right? What does it mean, believe in God? Believe in creation. Yeah, believe in creation. Believe that God's involved in the world? Yes, believe that God's involved in the world. But Judaism says we can't just leave something in the I believe realm, right? It needs to be concretized. It needs to be lived. It needs to be expressed. It needs to manifest itself in what I do. And that's what Shabbos is. Shabbos is, we say, it's not that God rested, God wasn't tired, but God stopped creating. So in order to reinforce that, every week, comes Shabbat, we stop creating. The 39 malachot, or the 39 creative acts, and we stop creating. We've got to live it. It can't just be, yes, I believe in this, and I believe in that, and I believe in this, and I believe in that, but it has to govern our actions, and it becomes a part of our daily actions. When I say routine also has a negative connotation that just becomes our routine. But it needs to become part of what we do, how we act, really every moment of our life. Therefore, ve'ela ha-mishpatim. And these are the mishpatim. There are those that explain a little bit differently. Or, I don't know, there are those that say, this now, along those what Yafi was saying, this now, we're explaining the Ten Commandments. Okay, we're explaining the Ten Commandments. We're told not to steal. Actually, that's kidnapping. But we're told not to covet that which belongs to someone else. And therefore, we've got to work through and understand, well, what's mine and what is someone else's. Right? We need to have very, very clear parameters of these mishpatim, of these monetary laws and judgments, to know what is mine and what is someone else's. And therefore we need to have these legal monetary lines drawn in a very, very clear way. Let's look back for a moment. Let's look back for a moment to page 412, to that which we are explaining over here. Well, let's go back to page 406. Let's go back to the Ten Commandments for a few moments. In the bottom of page 406 is the first of the Ten Commandments. Anochi Hashem Elokecha, asher hotzaticha me'eretz Mitzrayim ve'et avadim. I am Hashem, your God, took you out of the land of Egypt, from the house of bondage. That's the first. Number two is this next paragraph, right? On page 408, 409, right? Going from verse 3 through verse 6, right? You should not recognize the gods of my presence, etc. You should not make yourself a carved image, right? Etc., etc., etc. That's all the first two. But how many words do we have over here so far in the first two? I don't know, 50, 60 would we guess? In these first two, starting on pasuk Beth, I'd say about 50, 60 words. Let's continue number 3. Not take Hashem's name in vain. Hashem will not absolve anyone who takes his name in vain. Okay? Another 10, 12, 13, 14, 15 words. Number 4, page 411. 4:10, 4:11. Zachor Yom HaShabbat l'kadsho. Remember the day of Sabbath to sanctify it. 6 days shall you work, right, and do all that you're going to do. Again, that paragraph probably about another 50 words, give or take. Lastly, still on the first of the tablets, Kabed et avicha v'et imecha, honor your father and your mother in order that you have long days on this land that God has given to you. Okay? Another 10 to 15 words. That's the first of the tablets. The second tablet, Lo tirtzach, is number 6. Do not murder. Lo tinaf, do not commit adultery. Lo tignov, do not steal, kidnap. So far we have 6 words for 3. Lo ta'aneh v'reacha eid shaker. Right? Do not bear false testimony. Up to 11 words. Last one, lo tachmod beit re'echa. Do not covet the house of your friend. Lo tachmod eshet re'echa, the wife of your friend. Avdo, slave, amato, maid servant, shoroch, amaro, v'chol asher l're'echa. Actually 26 words. Isn't that interesting? No, 26. Very interesting. Ashkenazim, whenever we give a check, right, it's 18. Okay? The reason the Sephardim do better than us, whenever they give a check, it's 26, not 18. Right? Why do we do 18? Chai, life. Why do they do 26?
God's name.
God's name. Yud, K, Vav, Yud, followed by Hey, followed by Vav, Hey. God's ineffable name has the numerical value of 26. Right? So isn't that interesting that, never noticed this before, that, unless I counted wrong. Did I count right? Before I go on. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 26. Yeah. Isn't that interesting that the part that's talking about Bein Adam l'chaveiro, between man and man, is the numerical value of, is 26 words. Yud Kei Vav Kei, which is God's name.
Well, connection between man and man.
Yeah, is godly.
Right.
Yeah, right. It's the same idea we said before, Ve'elah Mishpatim. The point that I wanted to make is brought in the sefer called the Mabit. A very interesting point. Right? When we're writing, let's say, a poster, right? So we play with the fonts in the poster, right? What you really want, when you really want to catch their eyes, you're using the big font, right? Otherwise, you're using a smaller font. You want to catch their eye. This is what it's about. And then once they're looking at the poster, that big font caught their eye. Now they start to read the smaller print, right? But the point that you really want to try to catch them with, you really want to get across, that's big letters, bold font. We have 2 identical stones over here. The first one has the 5 commandments. Second one has second 5. Right? Second one has 26 words on it. First one has, I don't know, I didn't count, but I would surmise between 120 to 180 words over there. What are the fonts going to be? Right? The Bein Adam l'chaveiro, between the man and man, is going to be big, bold letters, and everything else is going to be almost what we would call the fine print. That's how it's going to be. Right? God, no other gods, God's name in vain, Shabbat, honoring parents, that's all going to be the small font. And the large font is going to be how we're treating one another. Lo tirtzach, lo tinaf, lo tignov, lo tanavaracha eid shaker. Now, what's interesting here, lo tachmod, the last one. Let's look on page 413. You should not covet your fellow's house. Lo tachmod eshet re'echa. Do not covet your fellow's wife. Avodo, manservant. Amato, maidservant. Shoro, ox. chamaro, donkey, v'chol asher l'reyecha, and nor anything that belongs to your fellow. A little bit strange. What's strange about this?
A donkey and wife, or this
Just
level?
Huh? Well, that means belongings, right? It means it means every aspect.
And you ended it by saying actually everything.
Yeah.
Because once you ended it by saying everything, then there's no point in listing the details. Right? You want to give me the details, give me the details. You want to say everything. But why are you ending off with everything that is l'reyecha? So, right? Why end off with everything that is to your neighbor if you're ready? And why give me details and then end off with everything that is to your neighbor? Yes, Janet.
Covering the main things that people might be attracted to in those days, and then the little things.
Fair enough.
Mm-hmm.
Fair enough.
Like if someone had more children, I mean, and you have blessed children, but that bounty of more, so that little subtlety.
Okay, that's definitely a possibility.
It doesn't mention his children.
No, I know.
Yeah.
So that might be something that would be anything that.
Another possible approach is it's letting you know that once you start with wanting this, wanting that, it'll become an obsession, and the end will be you're going to want v'kol asher l'reyecha, right? This will lead to that will lead to this will lead to that, and before you know it, you are consumed with this kol asher l'reyecha. That's a possibility, but the pshat, the explanation that I like the most personally, is the last three words are actually giving us the key of how to do it, of how to not be jealous, not to covet that which belongs to someone else. Because, and certainly where I sit in my office, I get a pretty clear, pretty perhaps unique glimpse of this. You look at someone and say, wow, they've got it all. They've got it all. Everything is going for that person, for that couple, for that family. Thank God. You think they've got it all. And then they come and sit down and say, Rabbi, could we talk? And then you see that, thank God, with all the good that's going on, there's a lot of pain. There's a serious challenge. There's whatever it might be. Whatever it might be. There was a couple that I really, and I know them really, really well. And I really thought that I knew them really, really well. Not here in the community. And, great jobs, great relationship, great kids, really, really things going beautifully. Until I have a conversation and he is actually suffering from alcoholism. And that certainly brings stresses to any relationship. And that was like one of the couples family that thought like, wow, they've got it. They've got it. And without fail, everyone has their challenges. There are no exceptions because that's what life is meant to be. And I've said many times, right? Why is there pain in life? It's like asking why are there weights in a weight room? Right? You go to a weight room in order to work out, in order to get stronger. Life is there for us to grow through the experiences. And that only happens when there are challenges and hardships along the way. So I might say, well, I wish I had that guy's house. Right? But his wife drives him crazy. I wouldn't want that. Right? Right? Or I might say, well, what a wonderful, he's got such a wonderful wife. Or what a great car. I wish I had that car. I wish I had this. I wish I had that. And we might look at aspects, details, the bayit, the isha, the eved, the amah, the shor, the chamor. You might look at different aspects and say, wow, I wish I had that. But then the way to safeguard oneself from falling into that trap is v'chol asher l're'echa. Look at the whole picture, all that person has. First of all, realize you don't know all that's going on. Very few people know all that's going on. Probably virtually no one besides that person themselves knows all that's going on. And at that point, famously, we've mentioned this before, the Bali Musar say, if everyone would have to write down all of their challenges, right, and put it down a piece of paper, and put it into a bag, and put it on the table. Everyone puts it there. And then you can't walk away. Everyone has to pick up at least one bag. Everyone's got to pick up a bag, right? But you can look at, you poke through. Wow. Right? You start looking through everyone's challenges, okay? And then all right, guys, time's up, right? Everyone take a bag. Everyone takes their own bag, right? And therefore the pasuk says, "Lo tachmod beit reyecha, eish reyecha avdamato shoro chamaro, v'chol asher lereyecha." All that is for your friend, all that your friend has, it's a package deal. And when you look at the package, everyone says, you know what? I'm going to hold. I'm going to keep what I have. Thanks, but no thanks. I'll try to help you as much as I can, but you deal with yours, and I'm going to keep mine. Okay? So, and it's also that's why it goes into such detail over here. Right? At that point, kol asher l'reyecha. A person needs to know. So we need to know what is ours, and therefore that's how all the other mishpatim follow through. Once we're on this, I want to point out a beautiful thing that I heard from Rabbi David Foreman. Really beautiful, beautiful idea. He works through how there is a structure. Well, all the Mefarshim, the Kli Yakar goes into detail how it's 5 and 5. Now, when you line up 5 and 5, so then 1 is aligned with 6, 2 is lined up with 7, 3 is with 8, 4 is with 9, 5 is with 10. And therefore, there's a certain connection between 1 and 6, 2 and 7, and so on and so on. And some of them are simple. The first one, I am Hashem, your God. And the next one is, don't murder. Right? What would the connection be between I am Hashem, your God, and not murdering? Hashem created, and every person has life and is in the image of God and has that spark of God. Right? And therefore, going back to what we were saying before about how we're treating other people, if we see every person as a child of God and in the image of God with a spark of God, then the way we treat others is very different. Right? The second one is don't have other gods and don't commit adultery. Right? So there it is, non-betrayal. Non-betrayal. faithfulness, right, in a relationship.
Echad ve'echad.
Yeah, in a relationship with God and in a relationship with others. And the most intimate of relationships is the spousal relationship. Right? The third one is not to say Hashem's name in vain. And number 8 is not to steal or actually to kidnap. Okay, that's right. The parallel, but parallel there is almost like the possessions of others. The possession of God that we have would be His name. Okay, 4 and 9. 4 is Shabbat, and 9 is not to bear false testimony. Okay, what would the connection be between Shabbat and not bearing false testimony?
With Shabbat, we testify Hashem is the creator.
Good. Shabbat is our testimony that God created. That's how we testify to God's creation. Right? So therefore, a non-Shabbat is a false testimony that we're giving about God. And therefore, right, aligned with don't bear false testimony. But we get to lo tachmod, we get to honoring parents, and we come to lo tachmod. Honoring parents is number 5, and number 10, lo tachmod is not to covet that which belongs to someone else. So what is the connecting line over there between not coveting and honoring parents? Amy.
For the good and the bad, whether you get along with your parents or you're not, you must honor them. You must thank them for giving you life, whether you have a lot or whether you don't have a lot. Whatever it is, be good with that.
Okay. So Amy's saying, parents, you've got to thank your parents. They've given you life, right? No matter where you are materially, no matter what other things they've done, right? They've given you life, right? And there must be appreciation for that, right? And then similarly, don't get all bogged down in items, right? Appreciation of what you have, not being jealous of others. Nice. Any other ideas out there?
To value yourself.
Okay, good.
I mean, this is
Yeah.
what he
Yeah.
says. And then there's a
Yeah.
very good saying, be yourself, because everyone else is taken.
Good. So Reformer goes into a very, very interesting idea. And I think it's a very powerful one. Let's go to the lo tachmod first. Don't covet your fellow's house. Now, let's say I go to my friend's house. I say, wow, this is a great house. I'd like to get a house like this. And I call the agent. And I myself get a house. I get a ride in his car. I say, that's a great car. Wow. Right? I go to the dealer. And I get myself such a car. That's not what we're talking about over here.
You earned it.
Right? We're talking about, I want his house. I want his car. And another way of looking at the fact that we keep listing all of these things, it seems to be almost obsessive. So it's not that I want things, I want his or I want her things. Why is it? What is this Dibor addressing? It's not saying don't be materialistic. You can want these things, you can have these things, but I can't want his or her things.
Depriving him of what he has.
Okay, it's depriving him of it.
Also, since you say Hashem kind of orchestrates whatever your material and physical and emunah and neshama situation is at that time, is probably meant to be, and so.
Good. One of the.
As Leah is saying,
good.
You need to respect that and work on elevating all of those.
Good. One of the. I think it's the Or Chaim over here. He asks, how can God tell us not to desire? Tell me not to take it. But a desire is something in my heart. How am I commanded about what I want in my heart? And he says that a person needs to build up their emunah, their faith, that God runs the world. And God gives every person what they need. And therefore, what isn't mine is not meant to be for me, and it's not good for me. You can compare it to going to someone's house and using the restroom, and then, you should never do this, but you're curious, you open up the medicine cabinet, right? And then you get all jealous. You say, I don't believe it. Look at this medicine cabinet. This thing is filled with heart medication, liver, pancreas, gallbladder, headaches, you name it. And my medicine cabinet just has some Advil, some Tylenol. That's all I got in there. Wow, I'm jealous. You're not going to be jealous, right? You don't need it.
You're stupid.
Thank God you don't need it. So whatever you have, you have. Whatever someone else has, thank God you don't need it. That's what one of the Mefarshim say. So coming back over here, if I want to be, it's not that I want the same car. I want his car. I want his house. What does that show? I'm not respecting who I am. Right? What I have and who I am. I want to be him. I want to be him. Purim is looming up. So when Haman hears Achashverosh say, right, what should I do for a person that I want to honor? And Haman thinks to himself, Libo, who does the king want to honor more than I? So what does he say? He says, the horse that the king wore when he was coronated. That's what the person should be led on. Wearing the garments that the king wore when he was coronated. Right? In other words, what Haman wanted to be Achashverosh. So therefore he said, let's recreate that whole coronation with one difference. It'll be my face in there instead of yours. I want to be you. What does that align with? With honoring parents. Why would a person not, why does a person honor parents? Why do we honor parents?
So that we inherit the land.
Why do we honor parents? For what they've done for us. Right? Created, nurtured, all that they've done for us. Why would I not honor my parents if they've done nothing for me? The only way they could have done nothing for me is if I am worthless. The only way I could think parents have done absolutely nothing for me is if I'm worthless. Because they created me. If there's no value there, then there's no respect, there's no honoring. If there's any value there, then there needs to be respect. So the common thread there is to respect yourself. To recognize your value. That is the parallel between number 5 and 10. Recognize your value, right? And that's an important concept that we have throughout. Not to be haughty, right? But, right, we say in Pirkei Avos, Im ani la'atzmi ma'ani. If all I'm worried about myself, if all I'm worried about is myself, then what am I? But realize that I've got the ability to help, to impact, to improve the lot, the life, the experiences of others. I'm here for a reason. Not to be self-centered. We'll just end with this. This sort of interesting idea. What's the very first word of the Aseret HaDibrot? And what's the last word?
What is the first word of what?
Of the Ten Commandments. Back on page 406, in Hebrew, Anochi. What does Anochi mean? I. What's the very last word of the Aseret HaDibrot on page 412? L'reyecha. Right? Reyecha means what? Your friend.
Where's that?
Right? So we need to, on page 412, third line, last word on that line there. Right? Your friend. Your fellow. English works out in English also. Fellow. Your fellow. Okay? So the Aseret HaDibrot and the Torah in general is meant to have us make a transition from I to you. Right? From being concerned and worried about myself to my concern and worry being about the other. But as we just said, but in order to be truly concerned about the other and therefore try to help, I have to make sure that I see value in myself. If I don't see the value in myself, then I'm unable to really have any effect on the others. But the Aseret HaDibrot is meant to be from Anochi, from myself, l'reyecha, to the others. And that is through the first 5, which is dealing with Hashem, second 5, dealing with people, and as we began today, ve'ele ha-mishpatim. So in order to understand what is mine, what is others, we need to know the mishpatim, and as we emphasized, ve'ele ha-mishpatim. And if we want to be godly, godly is not just in how we are in the shul, in the synagogue, when we're praying, when we're doing our mitzvot. Godly is every moment when we're in the nitty-gritty and all the dealings of our life. That is where the godly needs to be. Ve'ele ha-mishpatim.
That's the end.
That's the end. Ve'ele ha-mishpatim.
Rabbi,
Yes.
cannot go home without asking there. Why is it that if a slave get a wife from his master, he has kids, and then if he wants to leave, he can leave, but she can't. And if he wants to stay, then the whole thing with the ear.
Okay.
Why?
So
Why is that?
let me deal with the easier one first. Okay. The ear, if a person wants to stay, first of all, he won't stay forever. He'll stay until Yovel. Right?
Still, I thought that
Just 1 second.
Yovel.
So, whereas the 6 years is 6 years that the clock starts as soon as that person is sold, it's not the Shemitah cycle. It's their personal 6 years. The Yovel is every 50 years, the Jubilee year. Okay? So, a person will make the calculation. How long is it? So,
If he becomes a slave on the 49th year,
it's 1 year, then he goes out.
1 year and he's
Right.
done.
And if he becomes a slave on year 43, he'll be a slave for 6 years. He decides he wants to stay, he'll stay another year. And then Yovel will set him free. He became a slave on year 1 of the Jubilee cycle. It's 6 years. He wants to stay on. It's another 44 years. Right? That's set on the calendar. Why the ear?
What is ear?
The way that he becomes this slave that stays on is called a nirtza, is we put his ear against the doorpost and we pierce his ear, right? And that's the sign that he becomes an Eved La'olam, an Eved until Yovel. Blood on a doorpost.
Well, the same as
That sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Where did we have that before? Pesach. At what point? When we're leaving slavery to go out to freedom to properly serve God. And what is this person doing? We allow it, but we want to realize that he's moving in the wrong direction. Right? We went out of the door, and what's he doing? He's going into the door. So that is symbolism and the ear that heard, Ki li b'nei Yisrael avadim, to me you should be the slaves and not to other. He decided to accept it upon himself. So that also is is why the ear. Okay? That's the nirtza. The other question is, if he was, the master can give him a wife. Okay? The wife is not a Jewish girl. The wife is a shifcha Kanaanit, is a non-Jewish maidservant.
It's a mefarshim, it doesn't say.
Correct. But if you want, we can go through the Gemara. That's right. That's derived. Right?
What if it was a Jewish maidservant?
No.
But if
no.
he's Jewish, he gives him a non-Jewish, and
He
children
gi-
are not going to be Jewish. This is
One second. Okay, the non-Jewish maidservant, her becoming a maidservant to a Jewish family involves the start of a conversion
So
process.
she becomes Jewish.
So she is in between stages of becoming Jewish. Once she is freed, she is completely Jewish. Okay? So she is in this in-between stage, and any children that he will have with her are considered, being that she's not fully Jewish, the children always take on the status of the mother. So these children will have the same status as the mother and will belong, so to speak, to that
But that's
owner.
even worse. That's like
Yeah.
that's breaking.
That's horrible.
That's a horrible
It's a
law
horrible.
to break, even worse than anything else.
And perhaps
It's
this
being punished twice.
this
Not
is-
only being a
No,
slave.
the worst sin a Jewish man can commit is marrying a non-Jewish woman and having non-Jewish children.
But an eved,
Deprives his-
but an eved is allowed to, and perhaps this is meant to show the person that this is not where we are supposed to be, right? That this is the state that you've been somewhat degraded
So
to.
a slave,
Perhaps.
a slave cannot marry a Jewish girl.
He can. His master can't give him a Jewish. He's a Jew. Yeah, he can marry a Jewish woman. His master cannot give him a wife.
So
That's the
why
worst
once he's set free, she still belongs with the kids to the master?
If she's a Jewish wife, then she doesn't. If she was the master's non-Jewish maidservant, then her children will have the same status as her.
That's horrible.
Yes. One more thing. Does it?
Hashem's law.
Must the Eved accept the maidservant?
I
Must he be
believe-
compelled?
I believe so.
So it's separate.
I believe
It's
so.
not, I mean,
Parents
it's-
and,
they're
and
convoluted.
kids. It's
And it
like
also
the
sounds
whole
like
families.
the master is forcing to breed to get new.
The whole point. is
Exactly.
that-
Exactly.
This,
Just
This
like
is,
it's
I mean,
so first of all,
Okay,
it's healed,
so-
you won't have to pay someone back, and you won't have to be a slave. So none of this should even happen.
one more thing. Does it mean we're not
What's
allowed
enough?
to pierce our ears, basically?
No, it doesn't mean that. It doesn't
He
mean that.
paid. He paid, or if he's stealing, he becomes.
Okay,
becomes a
so
slave. And
let's keep one thing in mind.
he paid
Okay.
his punishment already.
Let me say this is a difficult parsha. Okay? But let's keep something in mind. Okay? This is not, there is no mitzvah, thou shalt have slaves. There is no mitzvah. There's no commandment, which means this is not something which we are commanded to have. This is talking about at a time and a society where slavery was rampant. And what the Torah is doing is, for that society, it is giving parameters and guidelines that is light years ahead of where the society was then. And forget about where it was then. Look at slavery in the United States. It's light years ahead of where slavery was when we had it 150 years ago.
Except for this.
Okay? Right? It is light years ahead of that. Now, if the Torah is saying that this is like Shabbat, this is something that you must have, right, every week, no matter what, so we'd say, 1 second, right, this is not something we should have. But when we view it in the context of slavery, at the time the Torah was given, this was a world where slavery existed. And it was brutal. And therefore, this was steps moving far ahead of where they were in terms of the rights and the conditions of those who were in slavery. Then we could say, wow, for in that society, this was incredible. In our society, we're not going to have this. We as a society have moved past it. Had the Torah been telling us this is something you must do every year like Pesach, right, we'd say, 1 second, this doesn't work. But we keep in mind that this was during that time period when it was, when slavery was cruel, oppressive, and deadly, as it was in our wonderful United States of America a mere 100, whatever it was years ago, 150, whatever it was years ago, then I think we can view it in a different way.
Not this specific, you know.
Again,
point of,
you're right. From
of
2000, you're right. In 2000,
punishment.
in 2014, right? You're right. We look at it, we say, ooh,
Yeah,
right? But we don't have it now.
He was punished.
But we don't.
He was punished,
But we
and then
don't.
He's
But we.
punished twice. That his family is just collapsing. His wife is going to stay with the kids, and he's going to go free. So he's been punished.
Well, that's
another time.
actually the nirtza is a person who says, "I love my wife and my children. I don't want to leave." That's usually the reason why the person will decide to stay on.
For that,
Yeah.
he's going to go through a horrible, painful process of the
Yeah.
year
Or
and stay a slave instead of taking his wife and his kids, leave and start new life.
yes.
So giving another
Again,
chance.
if he had his,
Giving another
if he
chance.
married his own wife, that's his.
It doesn't matter.
If he married his own wife, that's his.
It doesn't
His
matter.
marriage to this maidservant is considered part of the servitude. Right? If he wants to go free and then redeem them out, that's his prerogative. But again, I think it's important, and I got to go to a meeting. I think it's important not to look at it from 2014, where we don't have this, because it's not a command to always have. This was a command to giving parameters when slavery was over the
I
top.
think it's not,
By the way,
it's not horrible towards this man, but it's horrible towards the Jewish law. Obviously, breaking the law of marrying someone who's not Jewish.
But he's not breaking the law.
It's not breaking the law.
Because
Even to
as
marry
an
someone who's in
Eved,
the process
you're
of
right.
conversion is the breaking the
Yes,
law.
But an Eved has a different thing.
Say it
An
again.
Eved, a slave, has a different
And if
status.
he's done, he's going free.
Right? The one halacha where the Jewish slave is different than a regular Jew is in that allowance of that marriage.
Rabbi, he's not supposed to marry a non-Jewish woman, period.
Rabbi,
Yes.
does the maidservant and children, do the wife and children also go free during your vow?
Why?